0600 hours, the Narrows. A thick gray fog sits heavy on the water, obscuring the horizon. The ocean is dangerously calm, the only sound the low hum of diesel engines churning through the swell. On the bridge of the lead destroyer, officers stand motionless, binoculars pressed to their eyes. The radar screens glow with a monotonous green sweep. Salt spray coats the reinforced glass windows. The silence is heavy, pressing against the ears like deep water. A single contact breaks the rhythm on the digital plot. It moves fast, cutting straight through the exclusion zone markers. The radio officer hails the vessel on the international distress frequency. Static is the only reply. The contact accelerates. The captain gives the signal. The forward deck gun swivels with a mechanical whine. A single warning shot crashes into the water across the intruder's bow. A geyser of white water erupts skyward, slapping against the rusted hull of the incoming ship. The vessel does not slow down. Thick black smoke pours from its single funnel as it pushes its engines to the red line. It is a massive cargo freighter running dark, no flags flying. Suddenly, the freighter turns sharply. It aims its jagged iron prow directly at the destroyer's midsection. The destroyer's engines roar to emergency power. The hull shudders violently as the screws bite into the water. The ship lists hard to starboard, throwing loose gear across the deck. The freighter looms larger, a mountain of steel blocking out the morning sun. The bow waves collide, sending a wall of water crashing over the destroyer's forward deck. Sailors on the forecastle scramble, boots slipping on wet steel. They dive for cover behind heavy anchor chains just as the shadow engulfs them. The freighter clips the destroyer's aft quarter. Metal screams against metal. Sparks shower down onto the deck like fireworks. The impact throws crew members across the bridge. A radar operator slams into a bulkhead. Glass shatters. The reinforced steel railing on the port side crumples like paper. The freighter scrapes past, ripping away antennas, life rafts, and sensor arrays. The sound is deafening, a grinding roar that vibrates through the floorboards. The executive officer shouts orders over the chaos, gripping a handrail to stay upright. Damage control teams sprint toward the stern, dragging heavy fire hoses. The captain orders the weapons officer to track the target. The main gun locks onto the fleeing ship's rudder. The destroyer rights itself in the churning wake. Twisted metal hangs off the side, dragging in the sea. Debris floats in the oil-slicked water. A siren wails, signaling a hull breach below the waterline. The freighter disappears back into the fog, running for the protection of the coast. 0730 hours, the Narrows. The dense fog begins to lift, tearing into ragged strips that drift just above the waves. The destroyer moves at half speed, trailing a thin, iridescent slick of oil. On the aft deck, sparks shower down as damage control teams weld steel plates over the jagged hull breach. The air smells of ozone, burnt paint, and salt. The radar sweep is rhythmic and hypnotic. The tactical officer leans forward. 3 distinct blips appear on the green screen, then 6, then 10. They are moving at incredible speed from the coast. The water on the horizon turns white with churning foam. The klaxon sounds instantly. 6 fast attack craft burst through the remaining mist. They bounce violently over the swells, their hulls slamming against the water. Heavy machine guns mounted on their bows flash. Tracers zip across the gap like angry red hornets. Bullets ping off the destroyer's steel hull. A window on the bridge spiderwebs under the impact, showering the helm and safety glass. The destroyer's autocannons spin up with a mechanical whine. The barrels blur. A stream of high-explosive shells tears across the water. The lead attack boat runs straight into the wall of lead. The fiberglass hull disintegrates. Wood and metal splinter into 1,000 pieces. A fireball rolls across the surface, engulfing the small crew. The remaining boats split their formation. They circle the large ship, weaving erratically to avoid the return fire. A rocket-propelled grenade streaks from one of the small decks. It slams into the destroyer's superstructure. Metal shears away. A radar dish topples, crashing onto the deck below with a deafening clang. Shrapnel sprays the walkway, cutting through hydraulic lines. Fluid spurts onto the gray non-slip deck. A sailor on the starboard gun mount takes a round to the shoulder. He collapses, dragging the ammunition belt down with him. Another sailor steps over him, grabbing the spade grips. He racks the bolt. The heavy .50 caliber gun thumps rhythmically. Brass casings pile up around his boots. He walks the fire into the engine block of the nearest attacker. The boat stalls, drifting sideways. The captain grabs the comms handset. He orders a hard port turn to unmask the rear batteries. He commands the close-in weapon system to engage surface targets immediately. The stalled boat explodes as its fuel tanks ignite. The shockwave ripples the water. The surviving attack craft realize the heavy guns are turning toward them. They peel away, engines screaming, vanishing back into the protection of the fog bank. The destroyer lists slightly more to the right. Black smoke drifts from the hole in the superstructure, choking the morning air. 900 hours. The Narrows airspace. The sky is a flat metallic gray. Clouds hang low, pressed down by the atmospheric pressure. The ocean below is a chaotic canvas of whitecaps and dark swells. Aboard the distant carrier, steam catapults hiss violently. Blast deflectors rise. Afterburners ignite with a raw, chest-thumping roar. Two fighter jets hurl themselves off the deck, dipping slightly before clawing for altitude. The pilots check their heads-up displays. Green symbology overlays the gloom. Their radar warning receivers scream immediately. 4 enemy interceptors drop from the cloud cover like stones. They are sleek, angular jets, their engines burning blue-hot. The lead fighter banks hard left. The G-force crushes the pilot into his seat. His flight suit inflates, squeezing his legs to keep the blood in his brain. He grunts against the pressure. A missile detaches from the enemy wing. A smoke trail scribbles across the sky. The fighter releases flares. Bright magnesium stars burn hot against the gray clouds. The missile takes the bait, detonating harmlessly in a puff of black flak. The second fighter engages. The pilot lines up the pipper on the enemy leader. He squeezes the trigger. The 20mm cannon vibrates the entire airframe. Tracers sow a line of light through the air. The enemy jet jinks right, but not fast enough. The rounds stitch across its left wing. Aluminum shreds. Hydraulic fluid mists into the slipstream. The enemy wing shears off completely. The jet enters a flat spin, tumbling toward the ocean surface. It smashes into the water at 600 knots. A massive geyser erupts, instantly swallowed by the sea. The remaining 3 enemy jets break formation. They dive toward the water, hugging the wave tops to confuse the radar. The fighters pursue. The chase drops to 500 feet. Salt spray hits the canopies. The air is thick with turbulence. The jets buffet violently. One enemy pilot pulls up too late. His exhaust nozzle clips a rising swell. The engine ingests water. The turbine blades shatter. The back of the jet explodes in a brilliant orange flash. The fuselage cartwheels across the surface, disintegrating into flaming debris. The last 2 enemy aircraft turn back toward the mainland. They light their afterburners, leaving sonic booms that crack like thunder over the water. The fighters do not pursue. Fuel is low. They bank away, climbing back into the safety of the clouds. The ocean below is empty again, save for 2 burning patches of oil. 1100 hours, deep water zone. The fleet moves in a tight defensive box formation. The ocean surface is deceptively calm under the flat midday sun. Below the hull, the water is a crushing abyss of cold darkness. Inside the sonar room of the lead frigate, the air is stale and cool. Operators stare at the waterfall displays, headphones pressed tight against their ears. The rhythmic ping of the active sonar provides a steady, nervous beat. A distinct scratch cuts through the background noise. The lead operator freezes. He replays the loop. It is not biological, it is mechanical. A high-pitched whine begins to rise rapidly. Torpedo in the water, bearing 200. The scream tears through the bridge. The captain shouts for a hard starboard turn. The helmsman spins the wheel. The massive frigate leans dangerously into the turn. Steel plates groan under the immense stress. Propellers churn the water into a white froth. 2 white wakes slice through the ocean surface. They close the distance at 50 knots. The tactical officer slams the button for countermeasures. Acoustic decoys launch from the tubes. They splash into the water, bubbling and hissing to create a wall of noise. The first torpedo takes the bait. It veers left, chasing the decoy. It detonates 200 yards off the port bow. A massive column of water shoots skyward, rocking the ship like a toy boat. The spray rains down on the bridge windows. The second torpedo ignores the decoys. It slams into the frigate's stern. The explosion is catastrophic. The hull buckles. Steel plates rip apart like wet cardboard. The shockwave lifts the entire aft section out of the water. Men are thrown from their stations. Equipment tears loose from the bulkheads, crashing across the deck. Water rushes into this engine room, a dark, unstoppable torrent. Steam lines burst, scalding the air. The lights flicker and die, replaced by the red glow of emergency strobes. The destroyer escort reacts instantly. Its sonar locks onto the transient noise of the launch. The vertical launch system hatches fly open. A rocket-assisted torpedo shoots into the air. It arcs over the water, drops its booster, and plunges into the sea on a parachute. It enters the water with a clean splash. The seeker head activates. It spirals downward, hunting. Deep below, the enemy submarine tries to dive. It is too slow. The torpedo impacts the pressure hull. A dull, heavy thud echoes through the water, felt rather than heard by the surface crews. A minute later, a large bubble of oil and debris breaks the surface. The frigate lists heavily, dead in the water. Smoke pours from the stern, black and thick. Sailors rush to the rails, throwing life rings into the oily water where crewmen were blown overboard. The ship settles lower. 1400 hours, carrier strike group. The fleet cuts a wide white wake through the sapphire ocean. The sun beats down on the gray steel decks, shimmering off the heat waves rising from the catapults. Sailors in colored jerseys hunch behind blast shields, waiting. The air is still, save for the constant wind over the bow. The radar antennas spin relentlessly atop the superstructure. Vampire! Vampire! Inbound bearing 310! The tactical action officer's voice cracks over the 1MC. On the horizon, 6 distinct smoke trails rise from the distant coastline. They arc high into the stratosphere, then tip over, diving toward the ocean surface. They level out, skimming just feet above the waves. They are supersonic anti-ship missiles. They close the distance at Mach 3. The cruiser escort reacts first. The vertical launch hatches on the foredeck blast open. Compressed air ejects 4 interceptor missiles. Their rocket motors ignite in midair with a blinding flash. They streak upward, trailing thick white smoke, hunting the incoming threats. The sky fills with explosions. 3 of the incoming missiles disintegrate in balls of orange fire and twisted metal. Shrapnel rains harmlessly into the sea. 3 missiles survive. They weave erratically, confusing the tracking radars. They target the carrier. The fleet fires chaff. Cannons on the deck launch canisters that burst into clouds of silver foil, creating false radar targets. The lead missile flies into a chaff cloud, loses its lock, and plunges into the water. It detonates underwater, sending a shockwave against the carrier's hull. 2 missiles remain. They are seconds away. The close-in weapon systems, CIWS, activate. The white domes spin. The 6-barreled Gatling guns roar. The sound is a continuous chainsaw-like buzz. A wall of tungsten penetrators fills the air. The tracers look like a solid laser beam connecting the ship to the missile. 1 missile flies into the stream of lead. The warhead detonates prematurely. The explosion is close, too close. The blast wave hammers the side of the carrier. A catwalk shears off. 2 sailors are thrown like ragdolls into the ocean. The final missile jinks under the gunfire. It slams into the side of a supply ship steaming alongside the carrier. The impact is absolute. The missile punches through the double hull and explodes inside the fuel storage. The midsection of the supply ship vanishes in a blinding white flash. A mushroom cloud of black oily smoke rises instantly. The bow and stern sections snap apart, lifting out of the water before crashing back down. Flaming debris showers the flight deck of the carrier. Sirens scream across the fleet. 1800 hours, high-altitude enemy airspace. The cargo hold of the transport plane is freezing. Condensation drips from the exposed ribs of the fuselage. The only light comes from the red tactical bulbs, casting long, shifting shadows. 12 operators stand in 2 lines. They look like statues encased in heavy gear, oxygen masks clamped to their faces. The engines drone, a constant vibrating pressure in the chest. The jumpmaster raises a hand. He circles a finger. The hydraulic ramp at the rear begins to lower. The sound changes instantly. The dull hum becomes a deafening roar as the slipstream rushes in. The air inside swirls, sucking loose straps toward the open maw. Outside, the sky is the bruising purple of fading twilight. Below, a thick layer of clouds hides the earth. It is a 30,000-foot drop into hostile territory. The green light flashes. The first man steps off the ramp. He vanishes instantly. The others follow in a rapid rhythm. Step, gone. Step, gone. They plummet through the thin air. Terminal velocity hits them like a physical blow. Their uniforms flap violently, the sound like rapid-fire drumming. The wind screams against their helmets. They fall in a tight formation, tracking the strobe lights on each other's packs. The altimeters on their wrists tick down rapidly. 25,000 feet. 20,000 feet. They hit the cloud layer. Visibility drops to 0. Moisture slams into their visors, freezing instantly. It is a gray blind chaos. Then, they punch through the bottom. The ground rushes up, a dark patchwork of jungle and industrial concrete. At 4,000 feet, the team leader checks his wrist. He signals. He pulls the ripcord. The pilot chute catches the air. A sharp crack echoes as the main canopy deploys. The harness jerks him upward, snapping his spine straight. The roar of the wind vanishes, replaced by an eerie, suspended silence. They glide under the radar, steering toward a clearing 2 miles from the target facility. The ground approaches fast. Trees loom large. The leader flares his chute. He drops his kit bag on a tether. It hits the ground with a thud. His boots follow, sinking deep into wet marshland. He rolls forward, shedding the harness in one fluid motion. Around him, the rest of the team lands. There are soft thuds and the rustle of nylon. They bury the parachutes quickly, covering them with mud and palm fronds. Weapons come up, safety selectors click off, night vision goggles flip down. The world turns into a grain-filled green phosphor image. The team moves out, silent shadows slipping into the tree line toward the glowing lights of the fabrication plant. 1930 hours, Semiconductor Fab 4. The facility is a fortress of glass and steel. Inside, the air is filtered and sterile. Rows of multi-million-dollar lithography machines hum in the harsh fluorescent light. Technicians in full-body white protective suits monitor screens. Armed guards patrol the pristine white corridors, their boots squeaking on the polished floor. A shaped charge on the rear maintenance door detonates. The steel door kicks inward, torn from its hinges. It crushes a guard standing behind it. Concrete dust and smoke billow into the clean room. The special ops team surges through the breach. They move like a single organism. Guards at the far end of the hall raise their weapons. The team leader double taps his trigger. 2 shots echo sharply in the confined space. The lead guard's visor shatters. Red mist sprays the inside of his white helmet. He drops, sliding across the slick floor. The team pushes into the main fabrication hall. It is a maze of glass partitions and sensitive equipment. A heavy machine gun opens up from a gantry above. Bullets chew through the glass walls. Shards rain down like diamonds. A robotic arm handling silicon wafers takes a direct hit. It sparks violently, swinging wildly out of control. It smashes into a control panel. Expensive wafers crash to the floor, shattering into black dust. The team splits. 2 operators suppress the high ground. Their rifles bark rhythmically. Empty brass casings scatter across the white tiles, clinking loudly. The gunner on the gantry jerks backward. He falls over the railing, crashing onto a conveyor belt below. A guard pops up from behind a server rack. He fires blindly. A round strikes an operator in the chest plate. The ceramic armor cracks but holds. The operator stumbles back, regains his balance, and returns fire. The bullets punch through the server casing. Sparks shower the guard. He collapses. The team reaches the secure vault at the center of the room. The demolition specialist slaps a thermal lance onto the lock. The magnesium burns white hot, hissing as it melts the hardened steel. The metal glows cherry red, then liquefies. The door swings open. Inside, the prototype wafers sit in a shockproof case. The leader grabs the package. He shoves it into a padded rucksack. Alarms blare. Red strobe lights wash over the destruction. The pristine lab is now a ruin of broken glass, bullet holes, and bodies. The air is thick with the smell of cordite and melting plastic. 2,100 hours. Extraction Point Alpha. The beach is a strip of black sand between the jungle and the crashing surf. The special ops team sprints from the tree line, boots kicking up wet grit. They carry the wounded between them. Offshore, the rhythmic thump-thump-thump of rotors grows louder. 2 transport helicopters sweep in low over the water, banking hard to bleed speed. Their landing lights cut through the darkness, illuminating the churned-up sand. A high-pitched hum rises above the sound of the ocean. It sounds like a million angry wasps. On the cliff overlooking the beach, 3 flatbed trucks screech to a halt. Pneumatic tubes on their cargo beds tilt upward. There is a series of soft thump-thump-thump sounds. Hundreds of dark shapes launch into the night sky. Wings snap open. Electric motors whine. The swarm pauses for a split second, orienting, then dives. Contact! Drones! 12 o'clock high! The radio scream cuts through the noise. The helicopter door gunners react instantly. The electric motors of the miniguns spin up. A 6-foot tongue of muzzle flash erupts from the barrels. A solid stream of red tracers lashes out at the incoming cloud. The sky explodes into chaos. Drones detonate in midair, hit by the wall of 7.62mm rounds. They pop like firecrackers, raining burning plastic and batteries onto the beach. The air fills with smoke and sparks. The ground team drops to one knee, firing their rifles into the mass of suicide machines. The swarm adjusts. It moves like a fluid flowing around the tracers. One drone slips past the wall of lead. It slams into the tail boom of the lead helicopter. The warhead detonates. The explosion shreds the vertical stabilizer. The helicopter lurches violently to the right. The tail rotor disintegrates. The machine begins a death spin. The pilot fights the collective, but the torque is uncontrollable. The helicopter hammers into the wet sand. The main rotors strike the ground. They shatter instantly, sending jagged shards of composite metal flying like shrapnel. The fuselage rolls onto its side, digging a deep trench in the beach. Fuel sprays onto the hot engine exhaust. A fireball erupts, lighting up the night. The second helicopter pulls up hard. The gunner screams, holding the trigger down. The barrel glows cherry red. He scythes through the remaining drones, walking the fire right up to the cliff edge. The trucks explode as the heavy rounds find their fuel tanks. The control link severs. The remaining drones lose power and drop from the sky, crashing harmlessly into the surf. 2300 hours, Extraction Point Alpha. The burning skeleton of the downed helicopter crackles violently, casting long dancing shadows across the black sand. The heat is intense, warping the air around the wreckage. The special ops team huddles behind the twisted fuselage. Bullets from the tree line snap overhead, burying themselves in the sand or pinging off the helicopter's armor. "Mortars, incoming!" the team leader screams, pressing his face into the wet grit. A high-pitched whistle cuts the air. The first round slams into the surf 10 yards away. A geyser of water and sand erupts, showering the team in heavy, wet mud. The second round lands closer. The concussion punches the air from their lungs. The ground shakes. A deep, oscillating roar rises from the ocean, drowning out the gunfire. It sounds like a freight train moving over water. Two massive assault hovercrafts tear out of the darkness. Their giant fans scream at full RPM. They ignore the waves, riding on a cushion of air. They drift sideways, carrying immense momentum, and plow onto the beach. Sand sprays 50 feet into the air. The rubber skirts deflate with a massive hiss. The bow ramps drop instantly. Gunners in the forward armored turrets open fire. Heavy machine guns hammer the jungle. Tracers pour into the tree line, shredding vegetation and suppressing the enemy mortar teams. A grenade launcher on the port hovercraft thumps rhythmically. Explosions blossom along the cliff edge, silencing the incoming small arms fire. "Move! Go! Go!" The team breaks cover. They drag the wounded pilot across the open ground. Boots slip on the shifting sand. A mortar round lands near the helicopter wreckage, flipping a piece of the tail rotor into the air. Shrapnel whizzes past the team leader's head. They hit the metal ramp of the lead hovercraft. Sailors grab the operators by their vests, hauling them onto the vibrating deck. The man with the prototype chip rucksack dives into the cargo bay. The wounded are slid across the non-slip steel. Blood smears on the deck. The ramp winds shut before the last man is even sitting down. The pilot throttles the turbines to maximum power. The hovercraft lifts. It spins 180 degrees, throwing a wall of sand back at the beach. The fans scream. The vessel slides back into the surf, picking up speed. It bounces over the first breaker, then accelerates into the open ocean, leaving the burning beach behind. 0200 hours, contested waters. The ocean is a black void, broken only by the orange glow of burning wreckage on the horizon. The two great fleets drift apart, separated by 20 miles of dark water. The air is heavy with the smell of spent rocket fuel. On the bridge of the flagship carrier, the admiral grips the railing. His face is gray in the tactical light. Tube 1 through 4, fire. The command is flat. The final salvo begins. The destroyer escorts empty their remaining vertical launch cells. Hatches flip open. Compressed air hisses. Tomahawk cruise missiles ignite, turning night into day. They streak low over the water, skimming the waves, hunting the retreating enemy fleet. Miles away, the enemy responds. Their ships launch a counter volley. The sky fills with tracers again. The close-in weapon systems chatter, cutting lines of fire through the dark. Flares pop and burn, drifting down like dying stars. One enemy missile penetrates the defensive screen. It strikes the fantail of a damaged frigate. The explosion shears the rudder clean off. The ship shudders violently. Steel twists. The propeller shaft snaps, whipping around inside the hull like a flail. The vessel goes dead in the water, listing hard to port. The fleet commander makes the call. Abandon ship. Scuttle her. Sailors jump from the tilting deck into the cold black water. Rescue boats drop from the davits of nearby ships. They race toward the dying vessel, motors whining. On the amphibious assault ship, the hovercrafts drift into the well deck. The heavy stern gate closes, shutting out the sea. The water drains away. The ramp drops. The special ops team walks off. They are wet, covered in sand and oil. The leader hands the rucksack to an intelligence officer. The officer nods. The fleets turn their backs on each other. The damaged ships limp away, flanked by their escorts. The burning frigate capsizes in the distance. The bull lifts high into the air, water cascading off the sonar dome. It pauses for a second, then slides silently beneath the surface. The radar screens clear. The red dots fade. The ocean returns to silence,